In the wide, endless dark of space, the Galactic Empire of Varnak was a name whispered with awe and fear. It stretched across 6,000 systems, ruled by a council of elder species who had conquered countless worlds. The Empire's ships were massive, layered with armor so thick that even comets shattered against them. Their diplomats were cold and precise, trained in 23 languages and 2 forms of psychic diplomacy. When the Varnakians discovered a new species, there were always 3 steps: scan, assess, subdue. The idea of resistance was laughable. In 10,000 years, no species had ever laughed at the Varnak Empire and survived. So when their long-range sensors finally locked onto Earth, a small, strange blue planet in the spiral arm of the galaxy, the Empire barely reacted. Another primitive world. Another formality. They dispatched a diplomatic dreadnought named the Hammer of Peace, crewed with elite translators, robotic soldiers, cultural extractors, and one very proud ambassador, High Voice Rel Taran of the Silver Caste. His job was simple: arrive, speak, impress, and offer Earth a choice: surrender peacefully or be reshaped by Force Dot as the dreadnought descended into orbit. Earth's defenses did not activate. No missiles rose from the continents. No warning beacons flashed. To the Varnakians, this was further proof that Earth was technologically unprepared and intellectually dull. "They probably think we're shooting stars," one officer laughed. The ambassador prepared his speech, one refined over centuries, filled with phrases designed to instill respect and trembling awe. A single shuttle launched from the massive dreadnought and touched down outside a place the humans called Geneva. A crowd had gathered: scientists, politicians, and a few armed guards, but none of them looked afraid. Some had phones out. Others were pointing and smiling. One man in the crowd wore sunglasses and was eating popcorn. Ambassador Rel Taran stepped from the shuttle, his armor shimmering with starlight, his twin hearts pounding with importance. Behind him, a holographic display shimmered to life, showing the vast reaches of the Empire from the crystal cities of Zarth to the black gas mines of Dravik. He raised one long clawed hand and began to speak, his voice enhanced by subsonic amplifiers. "People of Earth," he announced grandly, "you stand before the emissary of the Galactic Empire of Varnak. You have been deemed a species of interest. You will now listen and choose. Join our empire and be guided to greatness, or resist and be corrected." The translator drone echoed his words in crisp English. There was a long pause. For a moment, Rel Taran expected silence, maybe tears, maybe awe. But instead, someone in the back of the crowd snorted. Then came the laughter, quiet at first, then louder. A young woman laughed so hard she nearly dropped her camera. A man in a suit turned to a general and said, "Is this cosplay day or what?" And then the man with popcorn stepped forward, grinning. Wait, he said, still chewing. "You guys actually named your ship the Hammer of Peace?" Rel Taran blinked. "Yes." The man laughed again, nearly choking. "That's hilarious. Do you know how many internet memes that's going to spawn?" The ambassador stared in confusion. "You do not fear us?" "Fear you?" said the man, finally wiping his eyes. "Buddy, we've survived nuclear wars, reality TV, and a decade of social media. Your scary speech is the funniest thing I've heard all week." Behind him, someone shouted, "Ask them if they brought snacks." Rel Taran's second-in-command leaned close and whispered, "Sir, I believe they are mocking us." "I noticed," Rel Taran replied, barely hiding his confusion. This had never happened before. Most species trembled at the sight of Varnak ships. These humans were laughing. The ambassador tried again. "Earth has no planetary shields, no orbiting defense stations. You are vulnerable." One of the human Generals raised a hand. Technically, that's not true. We just don't keep them online all the time. They run on solar, and we use most of that to power memes and cat videos. Relteron stared. Cat ... videos? Another human scientist stepped forward. Yeah, small animals doing funny things. Big part of our culture. Want to see? To the horror of the Varnakians, a man pulled out a tablet and played a video of a kitten attacking a roll of toilet paper. The ambassador stared. The soldiers behind him shifted uncomfortably. We were not prepared for this, muttered one Varnakian commander. Relteron gathered himself and decided to try a more aggressive tone. You will respect us. The Empire spans galaxies. We have ended civilizations with a gesture. We command suns. The crowd simply blinked. Then a woman replied calmly, Neat. We landed a probe on a comet using math, duct tape, and a playlist of 1980s music. Plus, we made a car company just to play with rockets. Also, added a teenager, we've got like 1,000 sci-fi movies about alien invasions. In most of them, you guys lose. Someone shouted from the back, Did you bring lasers? We love lasers. At that moment, Relteron realized something terrifying. The humans were not just unafraid, they were entertained. This was a game to them. And worst of all, they were already imagining ways to make fun of him on something called Reddit. He turned to his officers. We need to contact High Command. Now. As the Varnakian shuttle lifted back into orbit, Relteron looked down. At Earth with something new stirring in his chest. Not anger, not pride, but doubt. These humans were different. Strange, reckless, and worse, they weren't impressed. Back on the ground, the crowd began cheering not for submission, but for the funniest first contact in history, because humans didn't bow to space empires. Laughed at them. The hammer of peace hung motionless in Earth's orbit, its gleaming silver hull casting a long shadow across the blue planet below. Inside the command chamber, Ambassador Relteron stood before a tall viewing screen, arms folded tightly behind his back, his expression grim. Behind him, a chorus of advisors whispered hurried analyses, but none had a solution. In 10,000 years of expansion, never had a first contact unfolded like this. Species bowed, begged, panicked. But not humans. No, the humans had laughed. They had mocked the Empire's name, joked about laser guns, and shown him videos of furry animals knocking over furniture. The ambassador had read Earth's diplomatic history, expecting patterns of fear or submission. Instead, he found strange symbols, cartoons, satire, and an overwhelming use of sarcasm in official communications. One memo had even included a meme of a frog in a suit labeled Diplomatic Readiness, 100%. High Command had thought Earth was primitive, fragile, and easy to sway. But now they were realizing the far more dangerous truth. Humans were unpredictable, informal, and terrifyingly comfortable with chaos. As technicians scanned Earth's global networks, they began to understand what they'd stumbled into. These people did not fear war, they joked about it. Their movies featured impossible heroes fighting aliens with kitchen tools. Their scientists posted discoveries online between jokes about pizza. And their population, far from reacting with panic, had responded to first contact with T-shirts, memes, and celebratory flash mobs. One colony-wide intelligence analyst collapsed in his chair after reviewing a website called YouTube. They're insane, he whispered, shaking his head. They put their failures online for entertainment. There's an entire channel about things going wrong in space ... And they laugh at it. Relteron narrowed his eyes. Do they not respect survival? They celebrate near-death experiences, another officer replied. There's a holiday involving fireworks, fire, and cooking meat over open flames while arguing about politics. The ambassador pressed his hand to his forehead. We are not dealing with a peaceful species. We are dealing with a satirical species. Back on Earth, humanity was having the time of its life. News outlets showed endless footage of the alien visit. Talk show hosts did impressions of the ambassador's dramatic speech, complete with glowing eyes and echo effects. A pizza chain created a special Galactic Supreme in honor of the Varnakians. Some pranksters in New York built a cardboard replica of the Hammer of Peace and parked it on top of a building with a sign, "Free Wi-Fi for all galactic citizens." Meanwhile, government leaders met in secret with their top military and scientific advisors. But instead of panic, they wore expressions of curiosity. Their ship is big, but it's running a very old fusion system, one physicist noted. Our best prototypes are smaller, but more efficient. A general chimed in, "If they try anything, we won't fight with missiles. We'll send 1 trillion memes per second. Their morale will collapse by lunchtime." The president raised an eyebrow. "Are we seriously planning meme warfare?" The room fell quiet. Then someone replied, "Yes, sir. And it might actually work." Back aboard the Varnak dreadnought, another crisis was unfolding. The Empire had decided to launch a full cultural analysis of humanity, hoping to discover a weakness. But each file they opened confused them more. One report was titled, "Top 10 Earth Customs That Make No Sense." It included things like running toward danger, competitive hot dog eating, and calling friends ugly as a compliment. Rel Taran stared at the screen, baffled. They insult each other to show affection? A junior officer nodded nervously. "Yes, Ambassador." They also use irony as their primary emotional defense. So when they said, "We welcome your glorious domination," they were mocking us? Correct. They added a winking face emoji. The ambassador slumped in his chair. "We are at war with a species that weaponizes humor." He turned toward the fleet's AI. "Show me their history. I want to understand these humans." The AI complied, projecting images from Earth's past centuries of war, peace, rebellion, and invention. But something strange emerged. Every time humanity suffered, it grew stronger. Every mistake turned into a lesson. Every conflict turned into art, story, or invention. From ancient ruins to space telescopes, the pattern was clear. Humans learned by falling, and then they laughed and got back up. The AI summarized it best. Their power lies not in their technology. It lies in their absurd adaptability. Rel Taran's expression turned from frustration to something darker, concern. And the first contact was not a failure. It was a warning. We are not facing primitives. We are facing an empire of fools, and they are happy about it. Meanwhile, back on Earth, the first official message was being prepared to respond to the Varnak Empire. The United Planetary Council of Earth gathered in a hall shaped like a spiral galaxy. Instead of fear, the mood was light, almost playful. The message read, "Dear glorious representatives of the Galactic Empire, thank you for the visit. We appreciate your shiny ship, your dramatic entrance, and the speech. We gave it a solid 7/10. A few notes for next time. Maybe start with a handshake instead of a conquest threat. Bring snacks. Chocolate is a great peace offering. If you're going to invade, at least send someone who understands irony. We look forward to future relations, possibly after you've watched some of our comedy series to better understand who you're dealing with. With warm regards and memes, Earth." The Varnakian translation team stared at the message in silence for almost an hour. One translator fainted. Another simply deleted her file and walked out of the room. Ambassador Rel Taran stood alone, reading the letter over and over again. Finally, he sighed. "We cannot conquer them, not because they are too strong, but because they are too strange." Behind him, The stars twinkled innocently, as if the universe itself was trying not to laugh. The message from Earth spread across the Varnic fleet like a virus, bouncing from one screen to another, translated again and again in case the meaning had been lost in humor. But no, it meant exactly what it said. Earth had responded to one of the most serious, powerful empires in the known galaxy with a polite thank you, snack suggestions, and a casual reminder to understand sarcasm before starting diplomatic relations. At first, many on the Dreadnought thought it was a clever way of stalling, a delay tactic meant to buy time for some hidden defense. But hours passed, then a day, and still, no planetary shields activated, no emergency fleets launched. Instead, Earth's communications became even stranger. A live broadcast beamed into Varnic. Frequencies showed two human hosts on a brightly colored set, welcoming our new alien friends with balloons and upbeat music. One wore antennae on his head. The other greeted the ambassador by name and held up a rating card. Dramatic cloak game. 8/10. The Varnic crew stared in silence. Nothing in their thousands of years of protocol could explain how to respond to being raided on cloak fashion. Ambassador Rel Tehran held a war council deep within the ship's core, and his voice was low with unease. "They are not what we expected," he admitted, pacing before a projection of Earth. No military posturing, no panic, just ... humor. Intelligence masked in nonsense. Confidence hidden in play. They joke about war as if it's a game. Either they are the most foolish race we've ever seen, or the most dangerous. One of his advisors leaned forward. "Ambassador, should we deploy a threat display? Hover above their capital, lock weapons, show them we're serious?" Another shook his head. What if they laugh again? That question lingered longer than expected, because that was the real problem. Humanity's response didn't follow patterns. You couldn't measure them by empire metrics. They made decisions based on emotion, instinct, curiosity, and memes. Worst of all, they seemed to be enjoying the entire situation. Back on Earth, the UN building had never been so full of laughter. Delegates passed around printouts of the Varnic speech transcripts, highlighting lines like, "You will be corrected," and "We command sons." One diplomat from South America leaned back and said, "I've seen startup pitches less dramatic than this." A physicist from Canada nodded. They really thought we'd be impressed by big ships and loud speeches. Didn't they watch any of our movies? Military analysts, however, were far less relaxed. Satellite scans of the Varnock Dreadnought showed advanced weapon systems enough to level continents. Their ships were built for war, not talk. And yet, Earth had responded with jokes, hospitality, and a global debate about what snack to offer. A next alien envoy. "We're not taking this seriously," a general muttered. "We are," a young analyst replied. "We're just not taking it the way they want us to." She pointed at a screen showing Earth's digital response. "We're choosing unpredictability over fear. Chaos is our strategy. Confusion is our shield." At the same time, a small Varnakian observation drone hovered over Silicon Valley, watching a group of engineers in a lab building something strange. It wasn't a weapon. It wasn't a defense system. It was a satellite projector tuned to beam animated cartoons into deep space. When the drone tried to record, it was intercepted by a tiny quadcopter painted with googly eyes and the words "Nope" on its side. The drone's report confused Central Command. "They are jamming us with toys," it concluded. Another drone was captured in Japan by a group of schoolchildren using augmented reality visors and returned with stickers all over it that read, "Kawaii." Yet another was hit by an American weather balloon and accidentally became part of a parade. "They are defeating our surveillance using culture," one strategist finally admitted. We don't understand their social weapons, and they keep throwing art at us. While Varnic High Command debated what to do, something more important was happening inside Earth's own secret facilities. The real response had begun not in the form of nukes or lasers, but in quiet rooms filled with people humanity had never fully appreciated before. Mathematicians, language experts, chaos theorists, behavioral analysts, meme lords. The best of the strange minds. People who could see what others couldn't. And what they saw now was opportunity. Earth had long feared that first contact would mean slavery or extinction. But what if it meant something else? What if they could flip the narrative? The humans weren't scared anymore. They were curious. And curiosity, for them, was the most powerful engine in the universe. One of those minds was Dr. Mira Lane, social dynamics expert working out of an underground lab in Iceland. She stood before a table of global leaders and pointed to a model of Varnock history. They conquer with pride and order, she said. They understand structure, rank, ceremony. What they don't understand is irreverence, chaos, humor. They don't know how to fight joy. She tapped a console, and a series of simulations played out, each one showing a different outcome, where Earth simply refused to play by the rules. We keep them off balance. We respond with kindness when they expect submission. We joke when they expect tears. We confuse. We delay. And we teach them to be confused. That's how we survive. That's how we win. Meanwhile, Ambassador Rel Tehran stood once again before the viewing screen, watching as Earth's latest response came through. A package labeled First Contact Gift. Inside was a collection of items, a basketball, a mixtape of classic rock, a handwritten recipe for pancakes, and a hand-carved wooden alien figure holding a peace sign. The final item was a small whiteboard with a marker and one line written on it. Your move, space neighbor. Rel Tehran said nothing. For a long time, he simply stared at the screen. Then he did something no one expected. He smiled, just slightly, just enough for the translator droid to glitch and ask, Ambassador, was that an error in your facial protocol? No, he replied softly. I think I understand now. They're not mocking us. They're inviting us. They are laughing with us, and we've never seen anything like it. Because the humans didn't fear first contact. They were enjoying it. By the time the Galactic Empire of Varnock officially summoned a second diplomatic contact with Earth, things had changed in ways they hadn't expected. No longer did they see humans as a minor, underdeveloped species living on a green-blue world at the edge of nowhere. The chaos, the comedy, the unexpected responses, none of it had been a sign of ignorance. It was their way. The humans didn't follow protocols because they didn't need to. They didn't panic under pressure because pressure was their natural climate. In war, they adapted. In confusion, they thrived. And now, it was Earth that called the next meeting. The Empire expected negotiations. They expected groveling, begging, or perhaps resistance. Instead, Earth invited them to a conference, not just with leaders, not just with militaries, with the world. The entire world in orbit. The hammer of peace received the signal and followed. The digital thread downward toward a global live stream, watched by over 4 billion humans and thousands of alien intercepts. The screen lit up with the face of a calm man in a dark blue suit. He wasn't a general, not a president, not a spiritual figure. He was introduced simply as David from Earth. David adjusted his glasses, smiled slightly, and began. Hello. To our new guests from the stars. Thank you for your dramatic arrival. We don't blame you. If we had a spaceship that huge, we'd probably show it off too. The Varnock crew exchanged glances. This man wasn't joking at them. He was joking with them. Here's the thing, David continued. We're not interested in war. We're not interested in bowing or conquering or being impressed by titles and robes. We've done that stuff for thousands of years already with ourselves, and it got us nowhere. What we care about is progress, laughter, curiosity, and yes, chaos, because from chaos we get creativity. Behind him, the broadcast changed to a montage humans dancing, building rockets, rescuing animals, exploring oceans, surviving disasters, creating music. Scenes of destruction were followed by healing. Mistakes turned into lessons. Ideas became industries. One image showed a man fixing a satellite dish using a cooking pan. Another showed a child in a hospital bed, coding a robot to cheer up her nurse. You came here expecting to lead, David said. But here's the truth. We're not looking for leaders. We're looking for partners. You wanted us to follow your path. But we don't walk in straight lines. We wander, trip, fall, and stand back up laughing. And somehow, that gets us where we need to go. Inside the Varnick dreadnought, something shifted. No one spoke, but all eyes turned to Reltaron. The ambassador leaned forward, listening intently. There was no fear in this message, no resistance. Just honesty and something more dangerous than any weapon. Confidence. David continued, so we invite you not to rule, but to explore. Sit with us. Eat with us. Argue with us. We won't worship you. We'll tease you. We'll ask annoying questions. We'll remix your theme music and put it on a cat video. But we'll also teach you how to dance in gravity boots. We'll show you what a street taco is. We'll take you to Antarctica and let you name a penguin. Laughter rose from across Earth, but the message remained clear. Humanity would not be tamed. It would engage. With open arms and sharp wit, Reltaron finally stood. His staff expected him to scoff, to cut off the transmission, to prepare the fleet. Instead, he turned to his crew and asked quietly, "Do we have anything diplomatic to wear that isn't black or silver?" The question stung them. "Sir?" Reltaron walked toward the chamber's mirror. "They've made their move. Now it's our turn, and we'll do it their way." That evening, a second Varnak shuttle descended not with armored guards, but with scientists, artists, translators, and even a Varnakian poet. For the first time in history, the dreadnought opened its doors not to issue demands, but to listen. The world watched as alien visitors stepped into a colorful human conference room, decorated with art from every continent and food from every culture. Instead of weapons, there were musical instruments. Instead of banners, there were screens looping Earth's greatest failures and how they overcame them. Reltaron looked around the room, blinking at the variety of smells, sounds, and light. A small child offered him a drawing of a spaceship with stick-figure aliens holding balloons. A woman in a lab coat handed him a hot cup of something called coffee. "Be careful," she warned, smiling. "It's stronger than your fleet." The ambassador took a sip and nearly dropped the cup. His eyes watered. She wasn't joking. Then came the real surprise. The first human Varnak. Open forum. No script, no limits. One Varnakian engineer spoke into the microphone. "We believed humans were primitive. Now we see you are simply ... different. You move sideways, not forward. You build things that fall down just to learn how to stand them. But better. You waste energy laughing, but somehow it feeds your survival. You are not efficient, but you are resilient." The crowd applauded. David stepped forward again. "That's the secret. We're messy, we're loud, but we never stop trying." He looked at the Varnakian leaders. "We don't need your permission to grow, but we welcome your company if you can accept that we're not going to do it quietly." By the end of the day, the Empire of Varnak had officially postponed their conquest protocols. Earth was labeled cultural anomaly, high potential. And Reltaran sent a personal message to the council. They are not to be conquered. They are to be understood. But understand this at your own risk. They will not fight you the way you expect. They will disarm you with questions. They will distract you with music. And then, before you realize it, you'll be laughing beside them, wondering why you ever raised a blade at all. Back on Earth, the child who gave Reltaran the drawing later received a reply. A handwritten note, scribbled in careful Varnakian. Script: Thank you. We have never seen stars drawn with smiles before. Yours are the first. That night, Earth celebrated not because they won a war, but because they avoided one. Not because they proved superiority, but because they reminded the galaxy that strength doesn't always wear armor. Sometimes it wears a hoodie and brings cookies. And for the first time since the Galactic Empire began, its greatest ships returned home with a message that had never been spoken in their history. We've got a lot to learn from the humans. Months passed since that strange first contact, and the galaxy had not gone silent. Instead, it had grown louder, stranger, more colorful. At first, only the Varnak Empire had made contact with Earth, expecting an easy conquest or cautious negotiation. But now, things were different. The story of what happened on that small blue planet spread like wildfire. From the crystalline halls of the Threxan archives to the deep orbit listening rings of the Sharoon, everyone was talking about humans. Not because of their weapons, which were basic. Not because of their numbers, which were small. But because of their response, the day they laughed at the galaxy's strongest empire, and then invited them in for coffee, cartoons and jokes about cloak fashion. It made no sense. And yet, it worked. The Varnak didn't destroy Earth. They came back, again and again, and others followed. The once isolated world of humanity became a curious beacon. Delegations from species older than history itself began arriving on Earth, not with soldiers, but with translators, sketchbooks, musical instruments, and curiosity. Some came in peace, unsure if the stories were true. Others came prepared for deception, but ended up on late-night talk shows. One four-armed ambassador from the Corvian Fracture had planned to test Earth's defense grid. Instead, he went viral after being filmed dancing with a group of teenagers in Tokyo. The clip was broadcast across 8 systems and re-uploaded millions of times with the caption, "Galactic threat? More like galactic guest." The Empire, that had once made planets tremble, had now appointed 2 full-time envoys to Earth, not to control, but to observe and learn. Human culture began to spread. Not by force, not through manipulation, but because it was fun. Earth sent care packages to alien capitals filled with things like sunglasses, chocolate bars, dance videos, crayons, and books. Some aliens wept reading human poetry. Others, TRIED pizza, and declared it the first real reason to coexist. The galactic media began broadcasting Earth's comedy shows with subtitles. Alien scientists tuned in to human game shows and began to mimic laughter. A race called the Zivrins, who had no word for humor, created one and credited humans for the invention. Meanwhile, the Varnak Empire had changed in ways no one predicted. Their diplomacy division now had a humor specialist. Their dreadnoughts carried libraries of human films. One Varnak captain even refused to start a mission until his crew completed their weekly Earth culture quiz. But it wasn't just comedy or food. Underneath all the playfulness, the galaxy began to see what humans truly offered: resilience. While other species had advanced through control and caution, humanity had evolved by breaking, learning, laughing, and standing up again. They had built civilizations, lost them, and built again. They had looked into the void, afraid, but still reached forward. Their strength wasn't in their fleets or firepower. It was in the fact that they kept going. even when everything fell apart. That, more than anything, changed the galaxy. In one system, where war had raged for centuries, both sides paused their conflict to join a live stream from Earth called Lafakyan for peace. They didn't agree politically, but they laughed. At the same sketch, a single laugh had succeeded where 1,000 treaties failed. In another sector, a race that hadn't made contact with outsiders for 9,000 years sent a delegation because, as they said, we had to see the people who made the Varnak laugh. Diplomacy shifted across the stars. Empires that once used power to dominate began to study human-style connection. They realized that fear could control, but joy could unite. On Earth, the changes were even more dramatic. For the first time, humanity felt like it belonged in the stars, not because it was invited, but because it had earned the right to speak, to share, to teach. Children grew up learning alien languages and teaching their pen pals about Earth music. Cities built welcome hubs for visiting species. Schools offered classes in cross-species comedy and universal storytelling. But most of all, Earth remembered something it had nearly lost, a sense of purpose beyond survival. Now, it was no longer the lonely planet wondering if it was alone. It was the world that taught the stars how to smile. And far above the clouds, inside the now famous Varnakian dreadnought that first approached Earth with threats of conquest, Ambassador Rel Turan stood once more before a great audience, this time not to give orders, but to give a speech. Behind him hung a new flag, stitched from many worlds. In front of him sat representatives from dozens of species, all once divided by fear, now drawn together by something far stranger, something far simpler. Laughter. Rel Turan cleared his throat. When we first came to Earth, he began, we believed we would teach them. But instead, they taught us. They showed us that strength is not measured by the silence of fear, but by the noise of joy. They did not bow. They did not break. They welcomed us with open arms and ridiculous questions. And somehow, we became better for it. He paused, then added with a small smile, also, they introduced us to hot sauce. That was a dangerous mistake. The room laughed, and the sound echoed across the hall. Not forced, not polite, real. And in that moment, the galaxy changed. Again, because the Varnak Empire, once the symbol of cold authority, had now begun spreading a new message to its colonies. Not to conquer, but to connect. Not to threaten, but to understand. And it all began with a world that didn't know it, was ready, and a species that laughed at the stars and said, why not? In the final transmission sent from Earth that year, a group of human children stood in front of a camera, smiling. One spoke for them all, her voice clear and full of hope. To everyone out there, we're not perfect. We mess up a lot, but we'll always share what we learn. And if you come in peace, we'll save you a seat, probably with snacks. And for the first time in 1,000 star cycles, across all borders and species, something new appeared in Galactic Records, a shared holiday, a celebration of first contact. It wasn't marked by fireworks or military parades. It was called Laughing Day, and humanity, the little chaotic race from the edge of the spiral, had finally found its place. In the universe,